Predator and Alien both came out of cryostasis swinging with Alien Romulus and Prey, and have since gotten bolder with Alien Earth, Predator Killer of Killers, and now Predator Badlands, which makes a Predator, or Yautja as they call themselves, the main character. Badlands is directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who also helmed Prey and Killer of Killers. It takes place further in the future than any previous Predator or Alien movie, even beyond Alien Resurrection, which itself took place in 2381. This was done mainly to avoid stepping on the toes of anyone else playing in that same sandbox. Fede Alvarez with Romulus and Noah Hawley with Alien Earth. But it also just made for a fun change of pace. The movie opens, much like Predator Killer of Killers, with an excerpt from the Yautja Codex. Yautja are prey to none, friend to none, predator to all. Yautja Codex 042225. That codex number is a little Easter egg referencing the birth date of producer Ben Rosenblatt's daughter, April 22nd, 2025. Mazel tov! The opening images introduce their homeworld, Yautja Prime, where a small creature is eaten by a larger creature, which is eaten by an even larger creature, which is killed by a passing hoverbike.
There's always a bigger fish.
As a 10-year-old, that gag in Phantom Menace imprinted on my brain, and Badlands appropriately takes it a few steps further. It effectively becomes an extended bit, leading to the punchline of Genna, the most dangerous planet where literally everything tries to kill you. It's hilarious in its absurdity and escalation, everything is killing everything, but it also establishes the stakes and sets up some creative action sequences. Riding the hovercraft is Dek, a Yautja sentenced to execution by his own father for the crime of weakness. He's smaller than other Yautja, he's unfit for the clan. Dek's father orders Dek's own brother Quay to carry out the execution. He refuses. Punishment for that? You guessed it, death. But Quay goes down swinging and saves his brother's life. He sends Dek onto his ship and activates launch before father removes his head. But first, final words. Bring it home. What is Dek meant to bring home? The callusk from the planet Genna. The callusk is one of the most dangerous creatures on the most dangerous planet. If Dek can kill it and bring it home as a trophy, he'd finally be welcomed as a member of their clan. The movie walks a couple of tightropes in the first 10 minutes. It has to efficiently establish Dek's core motivation, and it does a good job throwing us into a moment of high drama. You don't get much heavier than a father demanding his son kill the other. I know from experience. It risks coming off melodramatic, but the fact that they're aliens makes it easier to accept. You immediately understand their culture is so brutal and Spartan that what to us would be unthinkable is ordinary on Yautja Prime. The other tightrope, allowing us a glimpse into Yautja family drama, risks demystifying the creatures. But we really stay on the outskirts of their society. We only meet a few of them. Geographically, we're not in their villages or cities, we're mostly in desolate landscapes or just outside their structures, so the scene feels sufficiently alien, and much of their world is still shrouded in mystery. One thing definitely not mysterious is Dek's face, because he loses that helmet fast. This is something Trachtenberg debated. The helmets are obviously iconic, but if the movie asks us to connect with a monster, that's all the more difficult if you can't see his face and expressions. They thought about having a broken mask so some of his face peeks through, but eventually they decided on just seeing it plainly for most of the movie. They also toyed with facial animatronics, but to properly convey all of actor Demetrius's expressions, they ended up going digital, animating the Yautja face based on his acting. Kudos, by the way, to Demetrius for learning to speak Yautja for the role.
What that means is I will take the callusk.
Also, a couple of Easter eggs. When Dek and Quay are looking at options for his hunt, and Dek selects the callusk, they first scroll through some other options. We see Naru, the main character from Prey, and the Backbiter from Killer of Killers. Dek lands on the planet. I use the word land generously, and quickly learns the warnings were accurate. Everything on this planet tries to kill him. In fact, he barely survives his first encounter with a tree. Yes, another ripoff of The Happening, but instead of neurotoxins, The trees just punch you. Deck's crash landing is shot as a oneer as he launches from the ship in his escape pod. I love experiencing the transition with him, so you can sense some of the disorientation, suddenly finding yourself on an alien world. I kind of wish Genna and Yautja Prime felt more immediately unique, but on visuals alone, they don't feel that different from each other. But Genna is a great punchline to the movie's opening. Bigger animals attack smaller ones, but on Genna, even the plants attack each other. And there's great commitment to the bit, where just before the title appears, we see one big flying thing eat a smaller one. And you've gotta love a delayed title reveal, as though to say 20 minutes in, after all the violence you've already witnessed, we're just getting started, pal. He really gets in trouble when a dragon drops a rock to set off the motion-sensing spiky plants, which paralyze Deck. How is he gonna get out of this one? Oh, thank God, I forgot these movies are made by Disney now, so quirky robot to the rescue.
I'm synthetic. I was built and deployed by the Weyland-Yutani Corporation for research, because their humans wouldn't last a day on this planet. We found that... Oh! I've never been thrown before! What a thrill!
Elle Fanning as Thea represents a left turn in the movie's tone. It definitely had a sense of humor already, but now it introduces a style that feels more of today, what some might disparagingly call MCU-style humor. Shortly after her arrival, Deck even makes a Drax-style joke, taking the metaphorical literally. She shows him how to pacify creatures by offering a snack.
You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
And he replies in Yautja, "Don't want flies." And only a few seconds later, she borrows another James Gunnism, this time from the DCU.
I've studied Yautja extensively. It's an impressive culture. Here, ask me anything. I bet I have the answer.
That's Vigilante's shtick from Peacemaker.
Dude, I know a shitload about owls. Quiz me.
What?
About owls. Look up owl facts and then see if I know the answer.
There's definitely fun to be had in the contrast between a jovial, word-vomiting synthetic and a predator on a mission, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed, especially on first viewing. Her arrival tamps down the movie's alien and futuristic feel, because yes, she's synthetic, but feels very human, and more importantly, familiar, especially in the 2020s. But honestly, if they were trying to broaden this movie's appeal, it worked. I have friends and a girlfriend who would normally have zero interest in a Predator movie, but they loved this one. I heard one describe the movie as cute, which more honesty. I don't want a Predator movie that people call cute. Is it wrong to feel that way? Yes, it is wrong, you purist. You're stuck in the past. It's time to try something different. But it's not different. Yes, it's different from past Predator movies, but very similar to the superhero and action comedies of today. Oh, and the original Predator wasn't a product of its time? That movie was quintessential 80s, and this one is quintessential 2020s. So let's all take a deep breath and enjoy the movie on its own terms. So when we get to the cartoon monkey later, I don't want to hear one peep about how cute CGI animals don't belong in a Predator movie. Because, of course, they do. So Thea, Weyland-Yutani synthetic. Weyland-Yutani, the nefarious corporation featured in the Alien movies. Explicit acknowledgement of this movie's shared continuity with that franchise. That's cool, and does get me excited for the prospect of Alien vs. Predator, but good this time. Thea has limited movement thanks to her lack of a bottom half, courtesy of the callusk. Yes, she has met the monster, and she knows how to find it. She proposes they work together. She gets her legs back, he kills the callusk, and brings home his trophy. It would be a mutually beneficial transaction. He's hesitant. Yautja's work alone. Until she describes herself as useful, and he realizes, yeah, she could be useful, like a tool, and he's obviously lying to himself, which is funny. It pokes fun at Yautja culture, the way his slavish adherence to their principles forces Deck to tell himself this obvious lie. Yeah, she's a robot, a thing. I'm just using her as a tool, that doesn't count as help. They set off while he wears her like a backpack. something that required a physical performance from both actors. They accomplished the maneuver with blue pants to key out her legs, wires to hold her up, and sometimes a wheelbarrow contraption. When she wasn't on his back, they'd often dig a trench to obscure the lower half of her body. It's a pretty convincing effect. As they traverse the terrain, she teaches him about the planet's many threats and how to pacify them, how to survive Genna by working with Genna. When they camp for the night, she tells him how she ended up on her own. Their whole team is made up of synths, but Thea and the other one, just like her, Tessa, are different. They were made with higher sensitivity, which allows them to understand the creatures on this planet. The idea was for Tessa to work in the field and Thea in the lab. But one day, Tessa let Thea come out with her. One callusk attack later, they were separated from each other, and Thea separated from her own legs, left stranded until Dec came upon her. One thing that's fun in this movie, spending more time with a predator, is getting a closer look at their array of gadgets. Trachtenberg compared their tech to a sort of evil James Bond. Here we see a small device that emits green light and warmth in place of having to light a fire. So what is Tessa up to? She is alive and not well, but will be soon. Back at the research lab, they work on repairs and reiterate the mission. Acquire specimen XX0522, i.e., the callusk. Yes, who could have guessed? Weyland-Yutani sent them to capture the callusk for use as a bioweapon. The ship AI Mother chastises Tessa for her failure and warns that the Yautja has Thea. In this scene, an automated surgery bot works on Tessa, something Trachtenberg borrowed from one of the best scenes in Prometheus. The inclusion of Mother, the ship AI from Alien, also creates a parallel between Dec and Tessa. Both are dealing with difficult parental figures. Also have to point out, aside from Tessa's scars, you can immediately tell her and Thea apart by their attitudes. Tessa is much more mission-oriented, with little thought to what's right. It's impressive Elle Fanning was able to give two totally unique performances in the same movie. Meanwhile, Thea.
Two warriors, Dec and Thea, on the hunt. Quick question, what should I be doing?
Quintessential 2020s. It's great. I love it. They come upon the razor blade grass, basically a field of knives, and meet a cartoon monkey. They cross the field by hitching a ride on the back of a bone bison, and end up in a scuffle with that monkey, stronger than it looks. Though the monkey is quite impressed when she watches Dec cut a bone bison in half. One of the coolest shots in the movie. As the bison runs toward Dec, he throws the sword, splitting the beast in half around him, and since he's thrown the sword, his hands are free to grab both halves of its bisected spinal cord. A great example of this movie's creativity in action sequences. Their mantra behind the scenes when it came to action was what could only happen in this movie, and this is just one example where they pull it off. I have to admit, in the very first action sequence where Dec spars with his older brother, I was a little worried because it felt kind of floaty to me. What you get when action overly relies on digital effects or the wire work doesn't feel quite right. But when this movie leans into that mantra and gets creative, which it does for most of its action, it's a lot of fun. The monkey is so impressed by Dec, she rescues him and Thea when they're almost swallowed by the massive Luna bug, something she could do thanks to her thick, armored hide. Moments later, Dec returns the favor, slaying the bug when it gets a hold of the monkey, which I should point out is not actually a monkey, but a creature native to Genna that looks monkey-ish. That night, they bond over a fire.
That was the best hunt I've ever been on. This is the dream team right here. The dynamic three, the dynamic trio, the dynamic trio! Remember when we went down the tree?
This was all apparently Elle Fanning improvising on set, and it's funny, and I'm glad it's in a Predator movie. Unrelated, but have you ever bit your tongue so hard it bled? Dec shares some Luna bug meat with their new monkey friend, and Monkey returns the favor by spitting on him. Thea explains that it's the animal's way of marking him as part of her clan. Dec retorts, he has no clan. With the Yautja's heart slightly ajar, Thea pries it open. She asks questions and learns that he's here because he lost his brother. He's grieving. She's here to find Tessa. When Dec chides her, you should be able to survive on your own. She says she can. But who would want to? Tessa is your sister, Dec observes. She never thought of it that way, but it's a lovely thought. There's also a fun moment where Bud, what Thea has nicknamed their new friend, mimics all of Deck's movements, a scene inspired by Quint and Hooper in Jaws. Where is Tessa, by the way? Now that she's healed up, she's investigating Deck's crashed vessel, and on it, she finds some interesting weapons, including cryo grenades that freeze their target. The best part of a Predator ship? The trophy wall displays skulls from previous kills, traditionally the spot for Easter eggs. That's where almost 40 years ago in Predator 2, audiences caught a glimpse of a xenomorph skull, and the idea of a crossover was planted. Here, no xenomorph skull, but there's a dinosaur. There's what looks like a river ghost, an alien species briefly seen in Predators. There's a larger-than-human humanoid skull. I've mostly seen people theorize it's an engineer. Hard to tell. And the best one of all, the one you can't miss, a harvester. What they call the aliens from Independence Day. Alien versus Predator versus Independence Day coming soon? I hope not. On the commentary track, Trachtenberg said, "Lots of Easter eggs in these skulls, lots of things owned by Disney and 20th Century Studios." Trachtenberg has confirmed the one from Independence Day, but that phrasing makes it sound like more of these skulls might belong to other franchises, and we just haven't identified them yet. Let me know if you think you recognize any. At sunrise, they continue on their journey. Despite Thea's protests, Deck leaves Bud behind. Deck reminds her, Yautja, hunt alone. Thea doesn't count because she's just a tool. She pouts and tries to learn more about Deck. She asks and he tells her why his father killed his brother. His clan allows no weakness. So he will show them strength. She tells him about an earth creature. They are called wolves. They hunt in packs led by the alpha. Now, the alpha is not the one who kills the most. He is the one who best protects the pack. And Deck has a great reply to that. But I will be the alpha who kills the most. Trachtenberg says they actually cut a few more stories and monologues from the movie, and I think that was the right call. The movie risks feeling heavy-handed already, so better not to overdo it. At the same time, I would have appreciated if Deck's character development felt like less of a straight line. He comes from a brutal culture where all they respect is strength, which begs the question, who invented all their cool tech? Where are all the smart predators who prioritize brains over brawn? The point is, you know by the end of the movie, Deck will learn to change his ways. But considering his upbringing, it should be near impossible to get him there. It should take more than a few stories and monologues. In the end, this movie isn't really about that. It's more about action-adventure, and there's just enough of an arc to justify the fun, creative action sequences and earn a mildly emotional payoff. But it would be cool if in future entries, especially if they delve further into Yautja culture, if things got a tad more cerebral. Soon they find the remains of the many synths taken out by the callusk, including Thea's legs, and she begins the reattachment procedure. That's the good news. The bad news? She called Tessa. The company is on its way, and Deck cannot be here when they arrive. She finally admits Weyland-Yutani is also here for the callusk. Deck is angry. She used him to get here. She was meant to be a tool used by him, not the other way around. Fine, let them come. Deck assures her that none can stand between him and the callusk. He walks out in a huff and sets off an explosion to draw his prey. Sure enough, the callusk arrives and does not disappoint. It towers over him, and their battle quickly reveals regenerative abilities that would make Wolverine blush. It also throws Deck at Thea, once again severing her legs. Yet she still lends the Yautja a hand, and in the end, Deck removes the callusk's head, and it promptly reattaches itself. The thing about heads, they usually have noses. Before the callusk devours the predator-turned-prey, it smells something on Deck. It smells that they belong to the same clan. Yes, Bud is a young callusk, this one's daughter, and by spitting on Deck, she marked him, and in this moment, that saves his life. It's then Tessa arrives with her team. Using Deck's own cryo grenades, they capture him and the callusk. Capturing the callusk is something they've been trying to do for a while. Only now that they have stolen predator tech can they pull it off. Which may seem odd at first glance. Quay warned Deck early on that even Father is afraid of the callusk, and Thea claims many Yautja have come for the callusk and died in the process. So why now is it so easy with a couple of predator cryo grenades? Two things to keep in mind. One, Yautja aren't just trying to freeze the callusk for studying, they're trying to kill it, and probably trying to do so honorably. So freezing it, sticking it in a box, and bringing it to a lab to figure out how to overcome its regenerative abilities is not their modus operandi. Two, a lot of those Yautja probably never even got to the callusk. Deck only survived thanks to help from a synthetic who has learned to survive this planet by working with its ecosystem rather than killing it, which is also probably not in most Yautja's nature. Deck wakes up strapped to a table and can only watch Thea and Tessa speak. Tessa has good news. Thea's research was right. The callusk has amazing regenerative abilities. Humanity can definitely use that and will thank them. And Mother will be pleased with Thea's additional catch, this malformed Yautja. Thea begs for her predator friend's life, and Tessa reminds Thea what they were built for. The only reason Mother gave them feelings was, yes, to understand the creatures on this planet, so they can exploit them.
The Yautja is different. He rescued me, like you rescued me. I did not come here to rescue you. I am completing our mission.
Tessa leaves to speak with Mother and orders a couple of lower-level synths to box up the broken Thea and interrogate the Yautja to learn how his weapons work. In terms of character development moving in a clean, straight line, here's another example. Thea and Deck's situations parallel each other so directly.
When we first faced the callusk, I tried to protect you, and that almost cost me everything. I almost made the same mistake the Yautja's brother made. The weak must be cold.
This convenient parallel, on the nose and how explicitly it's pointed out, combined with the serendipity of Deck happening to stumble upon Thea shortly after crashing on the planet. Good thing he crashed right near where she was stranded, or else he'd have been dead in minutes, plus the monologues leading to a change of predator heart, which should be a messy and difficult change. It makes it all feel a little cheesy. With the two synths in the room, Deck and Thea speak in Yautja to avoid their prying ears. When the synths find out she knows his language, they use her as a translator. Deck tells her, "Hey, you see that thing over there? Tell these idiots that it's a map. They need to take a close look at it. But really it's an explosive. So when they take that close look, it explodes and he escapes." Which feels a little too easy, and it's predicated on Thea being the only one in the room with access to universal translation. But they're all synths. Why wouldn't they have the translator app too? It feels odd they'd have to rely on a third party to translate, but this is the Alien Predator universe, where scientist after scientist is willing to stick their heads in extraterrestrial eggs they've never seen before, so sure, synths will do the same with Predator tech. The actor playing all the non-Thea and Tessa synths, by the way, that's Cameron Brown, who also plays the xenomorph on Alien Earth. Deck leaps out of the moving vehicle and down a waterfall, paying homage to Schwarzenegger taking a similar tumble in Predator 87, and even more directly borrows from this shot of Adrian Brody's waterfall tumble in Predators. Come nightfall, Deck heals up and makes a decision. He finds his brother's helmet and remembers how that brother saved him. It's like Thea said, the Alpha is the one who protects his pack. That's what Quay did for Deck, and now Deck will do the same for Thea. But with all his weapons stolen by Tessa, he'll have to use everything he's learned about Genna to improvise. Montage. He collects various plants and animals. Things that once tried to kill him, he now repurposes as weapons and armor. He recruits an ally too, Bud, the callusk child. Dex spits on her to claim her as part of his clan. And one more ally, or half an ally, Thea's legs. Deck's healing kit is a direct callback to the kit we saw in Prey, and a weird Easter egg, the voice of Quay's ship. Apparently, that's the Duffer Brothers. They were mixing Stranger Things at the same time Trachtenberg was working at the studio, so he was like, "You want to read some Yautja for me?" Once armed, Deck arrives at the facility. He fights with bone bison armor, a razor grass whip, and a squirt creature in place of his shoulder-mounted plasma caster. He and Bud kill their way through the facility, while Thea's legs reunite with her upper half. The montage sequence of Deck getting ready is a lot of fun. It comes from the template of the original, using the environment to fight against a stronger foe. But within that template, this movie stretches its creative muscles, inventing bizarre plants and animals as setup, which pay off in a really satisfying way when Deck wields them against Weyland-Yutani. The highlight has to be Thea fighting alongside her own legs. Again, fulfilling the mantra, what could happen only in this movie? And she gives her foot a high five. A foot five. Love it. It's also proof that using robots and monsters instead of humans to get away with a PG-13 rating works. It's just like the old Ninja Turtles cartoon. Make the bad guys robots, then you can slice and dice to your heart's content. It did honestly work. I did not find myself wanting for more gore in these scenes. Thea is rescued, but another still needs help. Bud's mother, the callusk. Their plan? Thea will focus on reuniting Bud with her mother, while Deck goes after Tessa. Deck and his explosive bugs make short work of the synthetic men who come after him. Tessa and her power loader are another story, not to mention the stolen plasma caster on her shoulder. That battle nearly gets Deck killed, but he holds his own until she arrives. Bud's mother, the full-grown callusk, freed by Bud and Thea. Working together, they take down the power loader, and the callusk turns Tessa into an early breakfast. As an action fan, this movie offers so much variety. It starts with laser sword fighting and acrobatics, and by the end, it's Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. But it's a power loader, similar to the ones we know from Aliens. So there's an added layer of fun for fans of either franchise with callbacks that don't feel overly intrusive. Because they make sense. Why wouldn't Tessa grab a power loader for this fight? With that, mother and daughter are reunited, and Tessa blows up the callusk from inside. Wait, actually, that second part is bad. Tessa is alive and killed Bud's mother. Now she points 3 red lasers at her sister's head, but before she can pull the trigger, Deck stabs her through the back of the neck. Finally, Bud makes his new predator friend proud by ripping off Tessa's head. Now, some unfinished business. Deck returns to Yautja Prime to meet his father face to face. That father is unimpressed with Deck's trophy, a synthetic skull, and orders his guards to kill his remaining son. Deck bests them with ease. Then it's a duel between father and son. His father activates an invisibility cloak, which Deck counters by starting his ship to spray dirt, revealing the shape of his father. Deck disarms him, removes his helmet, and traps him. Not sure what changed from the start of the movie that Deck can now take his father in hand-to-hand combat, when earlier he couldn't take Quay, who himself lost to their father. But thematically it feels right, and feels like the ending to a good Western. And Deck hears the words he once longed to hear from his father. Perhaps the right son did survive. Yield now and take your place in our clan. Deck responds, I have my own clan. Before Bud, grown significantly since the last time we saw him, eats Deck's father. With that, Deck retrieves his father's cloaking device and turns to face an arriving ship. Friends of yours? Thea asks. Deck replies, no, it's my mother. A fun punchline to end on, one Trachtenberg was unsure about until James Cameron insisted he keep it. You can see Cameron is thanked in the end credits, because Trachtenberg visited him for advice while working on the movie. Drew Goddard is also thanked. Trachtenberg met him because Goddard wrote Cloverfield and Trachtenberg directed 10 Cloverfield Lane. Apparently, Goddard is the first outside person they screened a very rough cut of Badlands to, and he helped to assure them they were on the right track, that this movie is gonna work. And I agree with him. Admittedly, I had to readjust my expectations because in my mind, Predator and Alien mean brutality. They are not humorless, but the humor is more wisecracking and character-based, less slapstick and cute. They can have lessons, but preferably not heavy-handed ones driven by monologues and, wow, what a coincidence, parallels. But Badlands proves Predator can be that. Overall, the movie is a fun and beautiful adventure. I didn't comment on the landscapes, but they do a great job mixing the practical with the digital to create something alien yet physical. The movie is uncomplicated in a way that borders on cheesy for me sometimes, but not so much that it ruins the good time. Apparently, after Prey, Trachtenberg had 3 ideas for additional Predator movies. He's now made 2 of them, Killer of Killers and Badlands. And a few months ago, he said he's still eager to make that 3rd one. Whatever it is, I'm excited for it and hope it continues to creatively mix things up. I do also hope for a movie with a darker, more serious tone, and one that doesn't require me to bury my emotions while ignoring everything inside me screaming, "This isn't a Predator movie," but it's fun.